Welcome back, Admin Mastermind and Teach Better Family. I have the wonderful Katie Miglin with me as we just finished our Admin Mastermind. And I was surprised, Katie, because even though it was spring break for a lot of folks, we had a lot of faces back with us and
Mhm.
some that we hadn't seen for a couple weeks. So it was great to catch up with them and see them. But wow, we had quite the discussion today on a very important topic, but one that I think is a struggle for many that don't really have a solution. So we're going to talk through just where we went, and the conversation went all over the place. But we started off with theme songs and got on a kick with different bands, but wanted to know where people were within the spring and how they felt in regards to their stress levels. So, Katie, what was the gauge with that first question for you?
I would say most people said they're in survival mode. Their song they chose was "I Will Survive."
Yes.
There were some people who, tried to put more of a positive spin of like, "Don't worry, be happy." But I would say there was definitely a vibe today of they're struggling. People are
Mhm.
struggling. So if you are an admin and you're watching this and didn't join us this morning, just know you are not alone at all.
Yes, which kind of bridged to the topic. I often asked in the Facebook group or on Voxer, like, hey, if there's a topic that you want to discuss, but then I also, will bring it to the floor for those who are in attendance. And right away, it was like staffing and not just
Yeah.
staffing, but like the staffing shortage that is occurring because, just kind of getting the vibe from folks like asking, hey, how is this staffing shortage affecting you? And a lot of things were happening. So some people, it looked like there were health reasons for admin to go on leave, and so there was a shortage there. Some were looking at laying off folks because there was a shortage of student enrollment. Some there was a shortage of people being sick and whatnot, where they had to go to e-learning. And then there's others where there's literally positions open currently, even late in the year, and they're
Mhm.
having to take people from other places to fill those roles. So, Katie, I know you're advocating for solutions in regards to the staffing shortage and trying to get some creative ideas. So, what were things that were thrown out that you felt like might be something that our viewers can implement for staffing shortages?
Yeah, some people shared the name would change depending where you're at, but emergency certificates or applying where if you have a teacher who has a teaching license but isn't necessarily fully qualified for the position they're going after. For example, if you have a math teacher looking to be a writing teacher for that year, you can offer temporary certificates. Again, it would change depending on where you're at, but some states and countries are offering that as a they give you an extension. So here in Illinois, for example, you have 3 years to complete your certificate so that you can then be fully certified. But while you're working towards it, you can be in the classroom teaching that course. So it does help principals kind of place teachers specifically in some of those gaps. So I felt like that was a good strategy that you can either advocate for. I know there are some people who are like, my district would never do that. And it's like, well, advocate for it. Tell them, here are the steps a teacher needs to take. Here's how they're going to be able to do it. Here's exactly how long it would take, and give them kind of a plan rather than just pitching the initial idea, because that could be something that's just out of the box thinking. Some teacher or some admin talks about teachers moving positions for the short term. So if you have a third grade position open and it's been open for a while, maybe you take maybe the media specialist and put them in the classroom with third grade for the year until you can get that position filled. We did just talk a lot about like the morale within that and moving people around with when it's not necessarily their passion. So if you're a teacher that is being asked to move, it's really kind of that initial conversation on how can you frame it. So it's like, we are doing this because we need to keep our doors open. We need to make sure that we are hitting all the things we're supposed to hit. And so for this moment in time, I need you to switch positions rather than just saying you're moving and creating kind of that negative cloud around it. So it is a lot of just understanding that these positions, they are unfortunate and they can cause a lot of stress to us as leaders, but they also cause a lot of stress to the classroom teachers for either people who have to pick up the slack or people who are being asked to move around and kind of fill in temporarily, especially if it's not necessarily something that they're excited about. So just being mindful of the mood that it could create and just kind of how that can impact your culture.
Yeah. So just thinking out loud, we had discussed, and Katie, I think you talked about this in a previous session too, is like, just as far as the recruitment, going to different campuses, trying to connect with universities. Like for ourselves in Texas, we would go to our region offices and ask them, for help and assistance in finding and recruiting folks. And then also organizations, like I would lean on TEPSA in Texas. They would throw stuff out all the time in their newsletters about like, this position is open. So just trying to get other avenues to get the word out that your district or your campus has positions opening, and then leaning on those organizations to assist. So I know someone had talked about Teachers for America specifically in regards to, filling positions in a time of need. So I know there's a lot of different places that provide alternative certificates, and that the state will provide emergency certificates, like you said, in certain situations. So I know that's a big hurdle right now for a lot of administrators, especially in the spring, as people are retiring, maybe they're getting promoted or moving on to a different district or school, and you're trying to scramble right now as you're doing many other things in the spring. Katie, I want to touch on what you talked about with staff morale, because we did kind of end the conversation as far as brainstorming a few things to help folks during this time, because obviously when there's a shortage, that really gets put on the shoulders of other people on that campus. So for instance, if a position is empty right now, you may be pulled, and I have had this happen as a teacher. I've had to do it as administrator of asking people to fill in, throughout the day for a position that's open. So that's an additional stress, additional work put on their plate. So as in regards to morale and trying to keep that high in the spring, were there any suggestions that people threw out that you would offer up during this time?
I would say the biggest thing is acknowledging it. Acknowledging if you have to go to a staff member and you need them, and you need them, and there's not a whole lot they can say that will keep you from needing them. It's acknowledging that their time and their job is just as important. And, rather than going saying, hey, Josh, I need you to cover this class because I have a meeting, say, I know you're super swamped. Is there something I can do? Can I buy you a soda out of the vending machine? Something that will make this a little less, frustrating or time consuming for you? Can I just help in some way? Because just those little acknowledgments do go a long way. And, we've talked in the past about writing thank you notes. If you have a quick second to write a thank you note of, hey, thanks for stepping in when we were swamped in the office or whatever, those things always can help the morale, but also just constantly looking for ways to boost it and be positive, even if they're silly and they have nothing to do with your school goals. Anything that can be fun. Some administrators share doing like a weekly game or weekly bingo, or any of those types of things are really helpful to just get teachers to forget about the stress that they're facing. We kind of talked at the end about challenging yourself to come up with something that can boost morale in the next few weeks, especially because not only are we maybe covering some of the gaps that currently exist, but we also know that this is the time of year where teachers get let go, and staff is, there's transitions in staff. And so that can also cause a underlining stress for teachers who maybe have to talk about next year, but their team member is getting let go. And so it's hard to navigate those future conversations knowing you're at a table with people who aren't going to be there. So coming up with just some fun games just to pour into your staff as far as just making it fun and having them find little moments of joy is really, really important. And if you're like, I can't take that on, I don't have time to think of it, send us a quick email. We are happy to send you a list of things that are quick to implement and can help, just as this time of year is tough. It's tough for admins, tough for teachers. It's tough for students. I see that with kids too. They just behaviorally, they're really struggling. So just anything you can do to pour into each other can help a lot.
Yeah. And I think not only acknowledging with your communication, but then also like we advocated with our district to be able to pay for those who were taking the time. So for instance, like, instead of doing your planning period, you're going into another classroom, like, well, we were like, you should be compensated for that. And thankfully it got approved so that we could start, providing that. And teachers were very appreciative of that, because who doesn't need more money in education? We all do. Right. So, that was something that we could provide in regards to compensation. Sometimes it was time, it was just like, I'd throw a ticket into their mailbox with a thank you. but also saying like, I'll cover your class for
Yep.
a period. Since you gave me a period, I'll give you a period, right? So
Yep.
trying to find opportunities, and I couldn't do that for 100 staff members, but I could do it occasionally, especially if someone had filled in multiple times. So I think there's ways to be able to communicate, your appreciation for obviously them doing more work than they're contracted for. And that stressor is very much felt, especially after spring break, when we're definitely looking at the summer. So loved, just the conversation. This is not an easy topic. We talked about stressors and things that are kind of hurdles for admin. And one of those was just the certification process of getting certified in the state, and that it's not universal, right? I've experienced this firsthand from going from Minnesota to Texas, Colorado. I would have to be licensed in every single state. And the process for that is extensive, and it costs money. So it would be wonderful if, as a country, we could just be like, hey, it doesn't matter where you're getting certified.
A teacher somewhere is good.
A teacher's a teacher, yes. So because as we know, people do transition to other states, and that happens more often than not. So to make that process a little bit easier for everyone would probably help. But there's a lot of things that hopefully can be changed over time. But I think the one thing some brought up was you need to have your voice heard, and you need to make sure that you're advocating for education, because if you're silent, nothing's going to change. And so I guess that's a challenge for everyone, right? Is to make sure that morale is boosted in the spring, but then also, if you see a need, make sure that you're communicating for those who are making decisions and advocating for educators all throughout the country.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Katie. So I will throw on the banner here, just letting everyone know that if you're joining us on YouTube and you want to join the conversation, we meet every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and it is free. So head over to teachbetter.com/mastermind to sign up, and then you will be sent your email with the Zoom link, and you can just bookmark it because it's always the same one. So
and tag some of your favorite teacher leaders and have them join the conversation as well.
Love it. And of course, we have the Facebook group too. So you can definitely find that over on this link, facebook.com/groups/teachbetter-admin mastermind. Oh, that's such a long link. We need to shorten that somehow. But all right. With that, I hope everyone has a wonderful week. And if you need anything, please reach out to myself or Katie. We are always here for you. And Teacher Better team would love to support you in any way possible.
Have a good week, guys.